if you're aspiring, we've talked about this before, but cream rises, so does other stuff. You'd like to make money. People are like, I would like to make a living as a writer. Let's do a would you rather here. Would you rather write fantastic, fantastic books that will reach across time and feed your great-grandchildren, and they will know you and really love and appreciate what you've done for them? Or would you rather like hit it with some popcorn and be able to buy a new car next year? Like, what are you motivated by? What are you trying to accomplish? Are you trying to maximize your revenue in the short term? Or are you trying to make something that will really resonate with people on a deep level and affect them in a lasting way? And can those two merge? Like, well, yeah, if you actually are truly incentivized about reaching people and affecting them in a deep way, there are financial benefits and upsides to that.
Met a ghost of a king on the road when I first fell. Fire burning to my knees I fell. Met a ghost of a king on the road.
That's a great question. Nate said recently, very recently.
Right before we actually started the show, which was like, we have to talk about that now. I said something along the lines
You said
of
that
capitalism never produces great art.
Yeah, the greatest art. You can qualify that, any of those words, a tiny bit, but really the nugget of truth.
Why qualify?
The nugget of truth remains.
Yeah.
That the great art isn't from capitalism, it's from patronage.
Often, but it's from artists who basically are motivated by different rewards and different incentives.
Okay, because you said your question that kind of kicked off that was, who's trying to make the 300-year cathedral right now?
Yeah.
And those guys, I guess, were not motivated by patronage.
Yeah, the architects and the people who are trying to do that, the people who tried to achieve really great, let's say, transcendent art. Mm-hmm. And even using the word transcendent art, like powerful, moving, transcendent art. We use that word trying to describe it. Why? It's like, well, because it transcends what? What is it transcending? It's transcending time, generations, place. When people really find something magnificent and achieve something magnificent, it transcends trend and reaches across generations and through time and does a lot of great stuff. When people are motivated by profit in their own lifetime and even in the short term,
this year's profit.
It pushes you into, and incidentally, it's way better than not being motivated by profit if you're trying to do anything business-wise. I want to write books that succeed.
Yeah.
But when an author is motivated to try to write great books, or want to write great books, it really helps if they're not motivated by money. Now, sometimes, because this is how the world works, and I think this frequently is how the world works, the need for money pressure cooks, creates restrictions, and forces, especially novelists and writers, to do better work. Because it's easy to be an elitist artist writing for your own self, and it doesn't resonate with anybody. And so the art can be more self-absorbed and less relational. And I do think the art needs to be relational. Mm-hmm. And so the financial incentive can help people be more relational in their creation because they need people to like it and buy it in order to succeed. However, that's pretty popular level art. Mm. We're talking about popular level. We're not talking about transcendent art.
Yeah.
Pop level.
Yeah, the thing that is not going to be remembered, that our kids will not be watching.
Sometimes Dr. Seuss. Yeah. Sometimes it does transcend, and it transcends and hits on a generational level, continues to resonate with something that's in what Schaeffer would call the mannishness of man. Like, it resonates with people across time and place and other things. And that's great. It's wonderful when that happens. And that does happen with movies, with films, sometimes classic films, things like that, novels, etc. However, when those people were going after those things and they struck gold, and it did kind of pop out where it's lasting popular level, it's not a cathedral. It's not Vivaldi. It's not Mozart.
Yeah.
It's not Rembrandt.
Okay, because this came out, we were discussing how come it's so disappointing to look forward at what's being created, or it feels that way.
Yeah.
You look forward to the next
What is
quarter.
the culture cooking up for us right now?
And you know it's going to be a bunch of things with 2 on the end. You're going to go back and you're going to be like, all right, I got another, I don't know, what movie have they not made a sequel to?
One of my kids were really fond of the recent title, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. And so they were adding a lot of other, like, Empire of the Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Like how many
decline of the empire of the planet of the kingdom of the
exactly.
Apes. Yeah, right. Yeah, that does feel like the regressive, recursive situation we're in now. Is we're just trying to mine and squeeze every last lemon for its.
Yeah, we're now having
juice.
robots squeeze our lemons like Chick-fil-A, and we're running it back through so we get every single drop out.
Yeah.
Then we serve the peels. Right. Like we're trying to get it all out of there, and because the industry is currently driven by streamers.
Yeah, that was your answer, is that we have streamers.
The industry is driven by streamers. And there is money to be made in theatrical. It remains there. Mm-hmm. However, paydays, salaries, cash, status, all that is driven.
Okay, sorry, explain one more time. Why doesn't a creative like you've had shows on streamers.
Yeah.
How come why aren't you incentivized to do excellent work on a streamer?
Okay, so the model here is, let's say that I'm going to spend $20 million on a show.
Okay.
Netflix says, so we love this. We're going to spend, it's $20 million. Here's the budget. They build the budget. You work with the service studio. If it's animation, you have your partners, everybody who's going to be involved. Mm-hmm. So the whole team comes together. You built the budget. They say, we approve this budget. You're going to spend $20 million. You, at that moment, have also negotiated your profit, where they say, and we'll let you take 10% profit.
Okay.
$2 million. So $2 million can be distributed across all producers, all lead creatives, and that is fixed.
Yeah.
So
okay, that's there. That's before the show's made.
Yeah.
You don't know what's going to go right or wrong.
No. It's fixed. It's baked in. So if you do a really, 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 really good job, what do you get?
Yeah, it's fixed, you said. So
you get another season order, maybe.
Okay. Yeah.
They order another show, maybe, and you get another baked in fixed amount of profit.
But what you're saying, I guess what I assumed would happen is kids love your show so much they watch it more and more, so you make more money. But you're saying that
doesn't happen.
That's broken.
That's gone. That used to be the case. So the guy who came up with Thomas the Tank Engine has a private island, and it's like it's all sorts of stuff. So
but Octonauts creators are just making 8 seasons of cartoons.
I don't remember where that originated. If that was on Nick or
no,
that might have been Nickelodeon. I don't remember. But
Hello Ninja, for example,
Ninja
could have done really bad. Turned out it did. If it did really bad or really good.
Let's look at like the negotiations on Hello Ninja. Amazon came in. They wanted the show. And they said, but we want to freeze all toy rights.
Oh.
So you cannot make any money off of pajamas, lunchboxes, fruit snacks, which is where, like in children's content, traditionally that's
where it is, right?
That's where the money is. So if you have a successful show, here's the show running, there's royalties, there's recurring royalties and revenues off of every time it is rerun, every time it's re-aired. On broadcast TV, there was, baked in profit there. Now it's permanently available. There's no second run. It's just constantly airing on a streamer. So there is no second run of it. And then Amazon says, we don't want to sell toys. We're going to freeze the rights. This was back. I don't know what they're doing now currently. If they're doing that, it's insane. They clearly forgot that they're the world's biggest retailer and could have had an incredibly vertical, powerful consumer products.
Yeah, I'm trying to think through
division.
What that is.
But they they wanted to freeze the rights. They really wanted the show, but they wanted to freeze the rights and have no one exploit them. Netflix came in and said, we want to nail these rights. We want to make this huge. We'll give you a large advance against the rights. So that, you have a baked in amount of profit on the show, but there's this other profitability over here that in success could really, really go. Well, the personnel at Netflix changes rapidly. And mandates change rapidly. And
so the shows last longer than the creatives.
The shows last longer than the executives in the streamer.
Right.
Often. not always, but often.
Change of plan.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and so then they decided not to pay that advance. And new people were like, "That's not how we read the contract." And we go back to the contract. It's like the reason why we went with you instead of Amazon is because we wanted to exploit these rights because there was this potential upside. That, we don't really want to do that. We don't want to create brands that we're then beholden to. We want to create the Netflix brand. We don't, it's like there's all this reasoning for the streamer why they wouldn't want to create giant brands and go pursue consumer products and that kind of stuff. So they gave the rights back to me, and then COVID hit. So nobody, it was like, well,
Nobody can buy anything.
Yeah, it was
Or
kind of,
make
it was kind of,
anything.
it was kind of pointless. So they actually were gracious in their pivot. They pivoted and said, "Hey, never mind about this, about consumer products," and then they did gift them back to me basically because they didn't pay the advance against it and didn't have any desire to exploit it. And so they ordered their 4 seasons. We made the 4 seasons. The profit was capped. And, then we had
And it was a hit show, most binged.
big hit show,
I can't
millions and
remember what you
millions
said
and
it beat,
millions of
but-
people globally.
Yeah, I can't remember. It came in above a number of movies you've heard of.
Yeah, so at the time, Disney Plus was rolling out Mandalorian. We were beating Mandalorian. We were beating.
Yeah. But you're
trying
saying
to remember other ones on the list. There
you're
was
disincentivized to achieve
yeah,
above that.
yeah, and
or even if you've been under
when
that.
we went back in, and when we moved from one step to the next on an episode, and then thought this isn't working, this is a little wobbly, and every time we reworked stuff, we're eating into our profit.
Oh, while you're making Hello Ninja.
Yeah.
Every
Time we're like, this doesn't look great. We need to do a better job on these trees.
Okay, I was going to ask about backgrounds, right? Because I assume background's one of the most places you save a ton of money because you don't want to draw every single background.
No, and it's obviously this is all CG. And
Right.
So there's,
But if you wanted to say make the backgrounds look real,
or just even make the backgrounds look better.
yeah,
This isn't compelling. We need to do
that
something.
only
better.
hurts what you're doing.
Yeah, it hurts the producers. They have to say, hey, we need to make this even better in a way that's just artistically more enjoyable to watch. That's going to diminish our profit.
Now, does the production cost come out of that? Say you take the 10%. Is that assuming a certain amount for making it, right? So they say you're gonna use this much on the show to make it. If you overspend, it comes out of the profit.
So sometimes
Yeah.
what they'll do is they will, it really depends on, there's so many ways to negotiate, but it really depends on what it is. And if you want to just make the decision yourself, it's like if you're making the decision inside of the production, or if you're going back to Netflix asking for more money, if you're going back to them asking for more money to make it better, they're just putting more money in and you're not increasing your profit. That's baked in, and they have said, this is the profit. We've decided the profit, and you guys will be paid this amount of profit broken up monthly across this much time, however they do it. There's a lot of different structures that people have negotiated. So if they can be giving you budget plus 12%, they can be giving you budget plus 10%. They could be just saying, let's call this the budget, let's call this the 10%, and we're going to break that up. And if you go under budget, then you can keep it. It's like there could be that. There could also be, if you come back to us and ask for more, we might approve it, but we're less likely to order another show from you. There's all these kind of dynamics, but really it's as flexible as any negotiation and how much they want the show or the film or whatever.
Right.
So the more they want it, the more leverage you have in negotiation and so on. However, greatness, like really, really extreme greatness on a streamer, any streamer, is not going to then earn you an increased stream of revenue on that product. It might earn you increased status in the industry. It might earn you the ability to
You
negotiate.
mentioned Stranger Things.
Yeah, you could.
Them doing however many seasons it is now, 5.
I don't remember.
Yeah, something like that.
Then they're getting paid better, more each step of the way.
Right.
But one of the things that's funny there is you're just renegotiating with leverage from the last one because they have their membership. I told you that when you make stuff for a streamer, you're making cheese cubes for a Delta Sky Club, and they are serving it to their members as a benefit. But they're
Members
not
are not buying.
They're not buying the cheese cubes.
Right.
They're buying access to the clam chowder and the cheese cubes and the crackers. They're buying access to all this.
Man, you can just see how it would be so tempting to get not the best cheese.
Yeah, right. And so why
on the funds level?
why does streaming content just cause these things to dip? And then what effect does that have on the rest of the industry? Why does the CG look so terrible in Gladiator 2? That was theatrical. It's like, well, industry standards start to change.
Oof.
So the whole thing starts to change. Everything kind of like shifts. And
this is a real tragedy you're describing here.
yeah. And so if you look at empires that achieve a really, in deep past, you achieved a really, really high level of artistry and execution, different parts of different dynasties in Egypt, there can be these amazing artistic achievements. And not too long later, there can be these really terribly done tombs, where the art is bad. The skill loss, the skill deficit is steep. And the thing that when it happens with the demographic drop at the same time, so you have the drop in.
Not to get super nerdy, but that was the story of Egypt. You had amazing sculptures, and then all of a sudden,
just
these ones were done with a different kind of chisel.
Why come? Why come are we so bad at this anymore? It's like, well, all the different steps of the way, if you think about how we moved into veneers and stickers, wood grain stickers, and all the things that we've done, vinyl siding, vinyl windows, like vinyl fences, vinyl picket fences, like the deterioration of product execution, skill loss is steep. It really is steep. And now over in film, you have guys who still are highly skilled. They're really highly skilled. Where should they go? What should they do? And how do they surround themselves with other highly skilled people and then try to get into the business model where you're incentivized to do excellent work? Now, that's capitalism functioning. You got to kind of incidentally, all of this is capitalism functioning.
Yeah.
So somebody figures out, hey, if I have subscribers, then my bottom line's better and I actually have a more stable income and everything's like I'm a lot more powerful and this is a better business model. A better business model for whom and for what?
Yeah.
For the art? No. Absolutely no.
For lots of cheese cubes, I think that's the answer.
It's a better business model for a business to have higher level of profitability, more stable profit. Yes. But if the goal is art, then no, it is not a better business model.
As a country, is this the reason why we've tried to hype up the lonely artist who cares about the creative, who cares about nothing? Like, it's sort of like if we're worried about this sort of cheese cube art, then the only solution is the artist in our mind, the artist who doubles down and doesn't care about anything else but the art and the greatness of the art.
And those people are insufferable.
Yeah, so that's what I was going to say.
They're terrible.
Because it feels like that's like almost a poison pill as bad as like we will have nothing great ever.
And so this is why I really think patronage is amazing and fantastic. Because you have those obsessive artists. They need somebody sane. They need somebody sane who's controlling the situation and commissioning particular things. And they're commissioning this statue because they know that artist is obsessive and wants to make something that's going to give people goosebumps 1,000 years from now.
So
people did that with chisels and rocks.
Right. So a Sistine Chapel needs a painting. And Leo goes to Michelangelo for that. If it was Leo, I can't remember which one it was.
Yeah, I don't remember either.
Yeah.
And just says you're stuck. That was a little bossier. I don't like that model.
The slave model.
But if you think about the patronage model, and when you find those obsessive artists who really care about greatness, and you eliminate the math of how are they going to eat, like those people usually need somebody to come in and make them eat. Like when I've been really in it, like my wife has had to require me to eat. You need somebody who's like, hey, this has to happen. We got to do this. You also need somebody saying this, not that. Like, no, you don't need artists with a total free hand. And the thing is, artists will say, man, patronage.
So that's the big thing.
Patronage is great, says the artist, because then I get to do whatever I want. No, you don't. And you need that check. You need that balance. And so capitalism can actually get you to a place where you have patrons who have the revenue and have the desire to invest in legacy, dynasty, transcendent art. they want to create things that will outlast themselves, and so they are incentivized.
So Bach is making church music,
Yeah.
like the best church music ever, but he's still making it for the church. And
Somebody's ordering it.
Yeah, it's being ordered.
And somebody's ordering it who has the authority to
fit,
send it back.
and also to fire Bach.
Yeah, exactly. And so there are these dynamics.
I
So,
heard even his grandson was a court musician. I think C.S. Bach. That's one of the other Bachs. And he'd married an Austrian, and he didn't even own his wife and kids. Like if he'd ever left the court and quit making music for the Austrian court, he would lose his wife and kids. That was a great.
if we look anywhere, I honestly, and there's people who know a lot more about art history than I do. I've a very kind of like amateur fan level knowledge of it. But if you bounce around through history and you try to find the greatest artistic achievements in any civilization and any dynasty, I just don't think you're going to find it coming up out of raw free market capitalism.
Because to complete the argument, capitalism is to maximize profit and minimize the variability of that profit.
So yeah,
Not necessarily to create the great thing.
So, and I actually think that the artist class is pretty interesting, like a weird, interesting infusion of people who are incentivized weirdly. And we've seen this in the inventor class too, where people they are satisfied by the eureka. They are not satisfied by the check. They don't know how much money's in their bank account. They love, just the thing, the design. We know mechanical geniuses like that, STEM geniuses like that, but we also know artistic geniuses like that who are not motivated by money the same way. They are motivated by really chasing this greatness. Now, they tend to be pretty weird people, and they need community, and they need balance, and they need other guys who are good at money, and they need people who are good at eating protein. Eat this right now. Make you eat and sleep and everything else. There's a brokenness to those people and the brokenness to their incentives, and that's part of their greatness. It's part of what they're really good for, but they need the others. They really do need the patron. They really do need the patron who says, actually, I don't really want you to do a sculpture of this psychotic idea that you have. I don't want that in my courtyard. Do you know what I would like?
Yeah. Greek goddess, please.
Yes. This is what I want.
Yeah.
But you need people who can become obsessive about making marble look like human skin and having the physics of human skin. And it's still remarkable to look at what some of these guys achieved. And they did it not because they were going to personally make more money. They kind of had that, obsession, and then they had that patron. Now, if we're trying to sell stuff, like what are we going to get when the artist is trying to sell, like to the population, to a democratic, capitalistic, artistic market? Like we'll get popular art.
Yeah,
and we'll
what
get
people want.
We could even get good popular art. We could even get great popular art,
Which is, I think, where we've been.
Yeah, we've been there before. Yeah, we've had great popular art, but in the end, when people are trying to sell, they end up democratically. They end up tempted to a lot of different ways to resonate with them. So somebody can be resonating with the population because they're connecting with those people as human beings made in the image of God. And they're connecting with them on a primal level, and people feel truth, goodness, beauty, etc., and an inspiration in watching something. And so then I made more money. And I made more money because of that. Or they can be trying to make addictive products. They can be trying to affirm the horrible sensibilities of the population. They can be...
Or they could just be so focused on the particular iteration that we're in right now that's why when you go into
Target,
Target, you'll go in and be like, wait, this whole toy section is something I didn't even know was a thing.
Yep, it's all new. It's everything's turning over, and you have the new, but you're also lacing everything with nicotine, and processed sugars and everything else. You're trying to, you can be trying to resonate with the man, the imago Dei, and you can also be trying to resonate with man the brute, man the addict, man the fool. And you can be pumping out pop music that makes billions of dollars. Is it great art? And it's one of the most successful artists recently was Thomas Kincaid.
Yeah.
and it's sentimentality, and it's this incredible sentiment, and reaching out to people to try to give them.
And it actually does have mass appeal.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people I know who are like, actually, I kind of like Kincaid. It makes me feel at home.
I feel
Yeah.
like I glow.
I feel warm.
And so it appeals to what? Is it similar to God's creation? No, it's not. Like, it isn't. Is it an accurate reflection of God's personality and truth, goodness, and beauty? No, it isn't. But did it resonate?
Nostalgia. Yeah, nostalgia.
Yeah. And so there's always this delicate balance, because as a novelist, as somebody who's written for the popular audience, I think it's really, really important that I'm thinking about what is it in man, what is it in kids that this will resonate with by design, meaning the way God designed them. What will make this resonate in a way that's great and inspiring and positive? But if I purely was thinking about money, just profit, I would be writing entirely different stuff. I have to be on some kind of an ideological and religious mission, and also trying to have it resonate and succeed and make money. And then we can get there.
Okay, here's a question for you.
So here, and I'll even say
go for
this. Did Lewis do what he did with Narnia for money?
Yeah, absolutely not.
No. Did Tolkien write Lord of the Rings for money? No. No, he did not.
In fact, it was a ton of work to bring it to everybody else. Yeah.
Yep. The motivation was his own children. Lewis's motivation and Tolkien's motivation, as in their agreement, was we want to make more of the kinds of stories that we personally like to feed on and snack on.
Yeah. And with them, of course, they had that group saying we need great art.
Yeah.
We're going to try to
But
achieve great art.
we need to pop down into popular art and treat it with the respect and pursue it like great art. And so they were seeing this war between the hoity-toity, which still exists, right, and the prudish and the stuck-up, the over-academic, and then the popular. And they wanted to create popular-level stuff for people that would resonate more deeply, because it's plucking the strings of truth, goodness, and beauty, and really connecting with man made by God, feeding him with the mythology and the kind of mythical food that they need to feed on in order to be bettered by it. Mm-hmm. And when they did that, it resonated, and they made a bunch of money.
Yeah.
It's like, that's great.
So here's a question for you.
But they were not in it saying, you know what I bet will make me $100 million?
Yeah.
It was not motivated that way at all. And people who do say, do you know what would make me $100 million, are saying things like, there aren't very many romance novels written by men.
Yeah.
I bet it would be like crack for women if a dude wrote like this kind of inflated, soapy romance novel. And so Nicholas Sparks just started pumping out that stuff because he was trying to serve crack to a particular kind of audience, and boom, 100, and it's all about money. It was entirely about trying to find the money. And that's where it comes roaring back. A lot of the publishing world, when they're packaging projects, when they're commissioning projects and doing things, it's entirely about like real quick vice flips.
That's what I was going to ask you, because how come a publisher cannot become a patron? Doesn't it seem like that's an ideal situation, is that relationship? Because obviously Tolkien and Lewis didn't have a patron per se.
Patrons don't protect you from vice or from making trash morally. As a rule, that's just not going to happen. The Marquis de Sade calls an artist and wants to commission a sculpture. What's it going to be?
Yeah.
It's going to be awful. It's going to be really, really disgusting. And we see all of the woke crap in publishing that started back right when I was releasing Ashtown. It was the first time I kind of saw it. I saw a little bit with Cupboards, but all of that stuff in children's publishing is a result of patronage. And so there's this.
Okay, so you're not saying patronage is like the golden goose that can only lay.
Yeah, right.
Art.
And it's them like pushing stuff. Just like you would have the Pope pushing Michelangelo to do what he did, you have these big publishing houses pushing authors to write certain stuff and then paying them to do it in advances they'll never recoup because they're trying to change the culture. Now, part of the thing that's broken there is that the people doing that are not the owners of those publishing houses. They're people on salary who will not make more money in success, or they won't lose money in failure. They're pushing an agenda using this giant machine that's been built by previous generations, and all the founders and the owners are dead and gone.
Yeah. Weird.
And so there's
weird
people
stuff.
inside this Death Star who are saying, "Do you know what we could do? Is we could commission,
steer.
we can steer the culture. We
everybody
can
lean.
commission a bunch of stories that reinforce all this kind of woke virtue signaling and woke everything, and we can push that on the culture." And so they use the levers of patronage, but they're also steering something built by other people. And this, you can imagine this going wrong in a cathedral. You know, somebody starts a big, gorgeous cathedral, and 150 years later, or 250 years into it, the guy who is now in charge of this build, who has inherited, control
they
of it,
did that with a great one in
says,
Spain.
you know what? I want the gargoyles. I want the gargoyles to all be terrible. They're going to be really bad. In fact, I'm looking for a completely different thing and pivot away from the vision of previous generations. There is no structure that just protects, inevitably succeeds, and inevitably protects great art. However, there are plenty of structures that disincentivize greatness.
Now talk about communism.
Yeah,
'Cause we hit
gosh.
So communist art doesn't exist,
Awful,
right?
awful. Yeah,
Art almost
it's just gone. It's propaganda only. It's
only art
It is,
for other
but that's a perfect
purposes.
example of patronage, right? So
Yeah.
you have this awful centered power, even though you were talking about it not being centered, that's commissioning art, and it's like, do it wrong and die. Criticize us and die. You will make this.
So the incentives get way out of control as well.
Yeah, but that is actually a weird form of patronage. It's just political patronage, which results entirely in propaganda, and it's a hot mess. And that is kind of what happened in publishing in the West as well. Once you have that kind of mentality, so if all else is equal, I much prefer a free market. I much prefer capitalism. But ideally, I would say to the billionaire class, I'd say to those guys who made all their money in oil and gas, don't just give an artist latitude. Don't just commission, the thing in in your courtyard that it's going to be whatever the artist wants, and don't also over trust yourself. Like go hunt for people who are obsessive and great, and commission things that are like that. I mean, I think we've talked to Alejandro Monteverde about this, and he's that way. He's very, very obsessive about his work, and that's fantastic. You see that with Denis, Denis Villeneuve.
The Dune.
Yeah, like what he did there kind of broke out, and what happened, like as he was working on that first movie, when they discovered how much money it could make in theaters, this whole thing blew up. The whole thing went big because he leaned hard in a very weird way. He fought for a big budget, and he really obsessively leaned into this and created an immersive experience that people really enjoyed and resonated with. And so it became highly lucrative, and he's made a bunch of money. So there are people who break out in different ways. It does happen. But as a rule, when people sit down and they say, so I'm going to write a book. I'm going to write a book, and I need a check. My kids are hungry, as I've been in this situation. My kids are hungry. My roof is leaking. I need to write a book. I got to write a book real quick. Looking around for what book I had that is of value is different than sitting down and saying, what could I write that would make the most money?
Right.
What could I write that would make, vampire romance. I wrote Tilt-A-Whirl. If I was just, I wrote Tilt-A-Whirl and sold it to Thomas Nelson, and I could have said highest return for the same amount of effort would be what?
Yeah.
It's like, well, it would be significantly more popcorny with factory produced butter and some crack laced in there. That would make the most money. And if you're simply seeking highest profit, highest profitability, then you are actually not one of the good guys,
Right.
artistically speaking. However, on the other side, run to the other side over the streamers, where you have no potential upside to extra sacrifice and extra work, and you're also breaking it.
Yeah, I mean, it reminds me back in the, I guess that was the Victorian era with the follies. So every rich man had the folly in his garden, which was like the crazy thing he built because he thought, I don't know what to do with my money, so I'm going to build a weird
funny thing
pagoda in my garden.
Yeah.
I think you could still, obviously there are ditches on both sides, and we are currently so far into this streaming ditch that it's hard to see the way out, except for people with a vision and money hiring the artist to do the things that need to be
when there's
done.
alignment between people with large bank accounts and people who are obsessively committed to trying to achieve greatness artistically.
That's exciting.
That's the magic sauce. However, when you have people with money who are intimidated by the artist and give the artist too much latitude, it goes very badly. But if you have people with money who are too bossy to the artist and try to have too much control, it goes wrong. I mean, it's a really, really delicate.
Yeah, it feels like we've had all those. There's movies about each one of those.
But and the other thing is, I should say, bouncing back, if we're talking about statuary historically and great sculpture, we have what survived, right?
Right.
And so we have what survived for two reasons. One is just happenstance, didn't get smashed. Buildings didn't collapse
or
on it.
sank and we just found it,
Yeah. Or it was hidden for some reason. But there was a lot more. There was a lot more art that didn't last, that people just didn't bother to save. It was like, oof, man, my Aunt Gwendolyn's sculpture here is pretty rough. This really didn't come out well, did it? The portraiture that is all gone, the statuary that's all gone, it's not like it was all great at all. So back in the age of patronage, I can say it, we've seen it create really, really, really great, transcendent, lasting stuff. I don't think we've seen just a brute free market do that yet. No.
And you're saying our current market is a little bit patronagey?
In part, in places.
But you're saying the incentives are definitely more on the capitalistic side if we're making this distinction here.
Yeah. So, and when I was talking about obsessive artists, if you're Netflix and you're talking to a really obsessive filmmaker who could not live with himself
if he didn't get everything perfect.
if he didn't make it perfect,
yeah,
you have to be afraid because you can't control your budgets.
Yeah.
Right. It's dangerous.
Yeah.
That's a very dangerous place to be. But you're looking at him and you're saying, you know what? Where is your incentive? He doesn't want to have to think about money. Like, he doesn't want to worry about his bank account, what he's eating, when he's eating. He just wants to make the art. You have to find people who are going to protect him, and you have to find people who are going to able to protect the investor from him.
Yeah.
So they both, it's going to be a tough relationship. So it's a delicate balance, and I think that it's not a surprise that not everything's great,
Right.
So
again,
I knock capitalism as producing art, but at the same time, I don't want something
The
else.
opposite, right.
And even getting into, we're in a place where Elon Musk, for example, has a bunch of money because of capitalism. He could commission great art.
Yeah.
And he could set up incentives for artists such that they aren't preening and they're just trying to be important and they're doing really crappy abstract stuff. But he has no taste.
Yeah. Yeah. You do
No
know
taste.
the art that he would.
Yeah. So he's capable with financially because of capitalism, but yet he's also very controlling and has his own aesthetic, which is informed by,
Diablo. If
Yeah.
you've seen his costumes.
Yeah.
It's just Diablo.
Yeah, and that, and also, iRobot and other production design, and
Yeah.
the Cybertruck looks exactly like he wants it to look. And so you have that. You have Bill Gates and you've got Bezos, but we see Bezos' aesthetic taste in that he ditched his wife and grabbed the weather girl. It's okay, that's great. And he's also built Amazon Studios and chased statues and awards. And, they're making Rings of Power.
Yep.
So, how does this work? And Amazon's still trying to figure out, they have an algorithm internally that measures the success of something, but it's totally arbitrary.
Well, that's what I was
when they
gonna
put
laugh
out
at.
the cheese cubes, when they put out the cheese cubes in the Sky Club
and
to all
nobody
prime
takes them.
yeah, and nobody's eating the cheese cubes. They're like,
We need an algorithm
So
to explain whether
makes,
this was a success or not.
So what makes the cheese cube successful inside of Prime? When people all have Prime because they're buying dish soap and they want shipping, and now admittedly shipping's getting worse and free shipping and all that kind of stuff. But that's why they have Prime.
Right.
And now we're giving them
diapers.
but now we're giving them film content. Did we actually create more subscribers? Did we keep more subscribers? Like, how are we affecting the subscriber experience on Amazon collectively just by offering Mr. and Mrs. Smith and spending that money there? So it's really, really interesting. They don't even know themselves. Like, they just don't. The producers of content inside of Amazon, they know that there's this algorithm that tells them whether they're succeeding or not. And they, it's a secret little box.
You should now apply this to the aspiring among us, because I do think often, especially with Camper Down MFA projects that you end up talking to people about, you get those two different kinds of people the same way. You get the complete auteur who's like,
I don't care what you say. I'm writing this for me. I'm writing this for me.
Oh, this is really ungenreable. Like, my idea can't fit in a genre. It's too good for genres. And then,
artisticness.
And then you also get the other side, which seems to me to be a little bit rarer, but I have a feeling it's not, of people who are like, just tell me whatever I can do to make this fit in a particular genre. Yeah. Those to me seem like easier people to work with, because you can push them to a particular direction. You can tell whether they succeed or not. Yeah. It's the auteur that is much harder to talk to. But I think maybe if you had an auteur that had something incredible, everybody would know.
Yeah. You want creative alignment. And if you're aspiring, we've talked about this before, but cream rises, so does other stuff. You want to make cream and you want it to rise. You would like to make money. People are like, I would like to make a living as a writer. Like, okay, well, let's do a would you rather here. Like, would you rather write fantastic books that will reach across time and feed your great-grandchildren, and they will know you and really love and appreciate what you've done for them? Or would you rather like hit it with some popcorn and be able to buy a new car next year? Like, what are you motivated by? What are you trying to accomplish? Are you trying to maximize your revenue in the short term? Or are you trying to make something that will really resonate with people on a deep level and affect them in a lasting way? And can those two merge? Like, well, yeah, if you actually are truly incentivized about reaching people and affecting them in a deep way, there are financial benefits and upsides to that, right? So
that's kind of got to be the guiding star, though. You don't get to say I'm doing popcorn with a little bit of effect, or can you choose?
Oh, you can make
full
popcorn.
Spectrum both
Yeah,
ways?
if you're like, you know what, I really love popcorn. I want to make some people some great popcorn. I think there's nothing to hate about that. But if you're saying the most important thing to me is that I sell as much popcorn as possible, well, that incentive corrupts it.
Gotcha.
The as much as possible thing is where the corruption gets in, because you're going to make decisions artistically that they start to appeal to other instincts in men and women that are not the instincts we want to appeal to.
Not the true, good, beautiful.
Yeah, so it's one of those things that I've talked about this before too, and I've used this. I've applied this to my coaching and other things, but there's a Harvard business study at some point, and I can't cite it. So, and as far as getting this right, assume that the details are a little iffy.
Do your own research.
Yeah, do your own research. But they were trying to study the impact of a high achiever in a company.
Yeah,
somebody who's really committed to doing a great job. They've got great character. And there's an outworking of character. They're not there to maximize their own profitability. They're getting the same salary that somebody else is getting. They're getting paid the same hourly or whatever it is, but they're there getting their money and they're committed to doing a great job, and they are a high achiever in that job. Mm-hmm. If you place somebody like that on a floor of cubicles, they have a blast radius of performance improvement that happens all around them.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's amazing. And so it's something like 30 feet. It's like 25 to 30 feet. They've actually measured it of how everybody in a cubicle within 30 feet of this person, their performance also goes up. Like if they're really deeply committed to pursuing excellence in what they're doing, and that is not an incentive. That's a character incentive. That is not an incentive for money. They will end up making more money, likely, right? Because they're going to rise. Cream rises. But in that moment, they're trying to murder their job. They're trying to just do a great job here. And they're a high achiever, and that infects people around them. And so there's, let's say, 30 feet. And again, Harvard did the study. I don't remember how many feet it was. I think it was 30. But in that range. So here's a little blast radius of people within this radius of that one high achiever. Everybody's performances improve. Now, they don't reach the same level as that person, but they all improve. Everybody goes up against themselves previously. So if you measure their performance before that person was inserted and you measure their performance after that person's inserted, they all get better. If you insert one toxic person, like truly toxic, complainer, like doing as little as possible, like just getting the money for as little input, at which there's whole business books written about how to do this, how to do as little as possible while making the most money.
4-hour work week this on your floor.
Somebody's there thinking like, I'm here for the paycheck and I'm giving as little as I can and getting as much as I can. And they're truly toxic in how they complain and fuss and other things. They have not found a limit to their blast radius. Every single person on the entire floor, their performance goes down.
Oof.
So that high achiever has this blast radius, but the negativity, the vice, the virus is the whole floor, like everybody. So it makes it clear how important it is to deal with toxicity in any team group, in any environment like that, company, teams, etc. However, the same thing jumping over to art. If you're selling vice,
it drags it down.
That stuff spreads like wildfire. That's LA fire. When you have porn.
50 Shades.
50 Shades.
Ruins an entire publishing industry. Yeah.
Like ruins a generation.
Yeah.
You know, it's
Here, I was going to be positive and say, that's why I feel like Dune raises the standard for everybody. But
yeah, I went the other direction.
Black Pill Nate comes in.
Yeah. But the point is, like, so when I'm sitting down and I'm thinking, how do I reach the biggest number of people? How do I get the most people to engage with my content as possible? If I'm just thinking about maximizing engagement and return, and that's all I'm thinking about, I'm going to start veering into vice. I will start appealing to the more contagious stuff, the things that actually spread like wildfire. Like I will start doing that. Now, on the flip side, we also see things like Harry Potter, where it's wish fulfillment in a more positive way. There's weaknesses in there, but it's a positive thing. Like she's creating this positive vision, this positive construction, and it spread massively. But like we've talked about before in previous episodes, nowhere near as far as 50 Shades did.
Yeah.
It just didn't. And that's like, there we go.
There it is.
So it is really interesting. The dynamics are tough. And as you try to navigate them, you're thinking about how do I reach as many people as possible with this good food and clean water? And how do I inspire people in a way that is consistent with a God-honoring aesthetic and the purpose that God has for their lives and this world and for goodness triumphing over evil, etc. When you're pursuing all that stuff, that's great. You're building a sandcastle. Building sandcastles is so much harder than kicking them down.
Yeah.
And so when people start to pursue taboos, subversion, perversion, when they start kicking things down, that stuff, it can just go. It's easier. It's more accessible. And it goes much, much
Infinite
faster.
sequels.
And that comes back to capitalism, free market. But what it really comes down to is, are you in a free market full of virtuous people?
Yeah.
Because if so, then the incentive actually works pretty well. You know, are you in a free market full of corrupt people? Right. Then danger.
The Adams quote that's regularly quoted, you know, about
virtuous people.
that wholly unfit for any other.
So I could say in that situation, like democratic, free market, capitalistic art could be truly great in a great society, of virtuous people. But
in the one we're in now, you feel like there's a path more
oh yeah,
patronage.
yep. And so like art can elevate, art can pull people, and it's possible, and it's healthy food, and it can nourish them and help make people be more virtuous. It can be grace, lowercase g, in people's lives. It can be positive inspiration and nourishment, and can help people grow strong. However, like that's also hard to sell. You're positive, and you can be contagious, and you can really affect people around you. You can be that high achiever, that artistic inspiration. And yet, are you going to get as many views? Are you going to get as many sales as somebody who's over sexualizing teenagers? No, you're not going to.
And that's good.
And nor should you. And I think that's actually kind of the dynamic. So when I pop off about capitalism, it's really like a criticism of democracy. I like democracy, but you can't insert democracy into any group of people and have it go well. It depends on whether they're a virtuous group of people.
I mean, we know this stuff. We've just forgotten it. Lord of the Flies is literally this explanation. Democracy. If they just had one king.
And it is fun to see people who are not financially incentivized, but it's also laughable often. So the artists who are
working as a publisher, that's the check we did. But you're just like, how do we sell more? That's the publisher goal.
We have to sell more, and that should be the way the publisher's thinking.
Yeah.
But the publisher should also be able to say, I could publish this book and sell 100,000 copies, or I could publish this book and sell 30,000 copies, and it's going to be much better for people. Yeah. It's like, it's just.
No, and you can think through as you make those decisions where you're like, oh yeah, that was it. That was one where we decided not to chase the bad option. You can also think through other failures, but it is good to see that you can look back and actually decide this is what we need, this is what we don't. Ryan, one last question, perhaps before we're done. Can parents be patrons for their children, or does that not work very well?
Yeah, you can. I mean, parents aren't exactly objective, but I mean, I'm trying to be.
Yeah, help your kids succeed, whether it's starting with schoolwork all the way up to their creative pursuits.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I know of way too many stories where somebody has a real artistic gift, a creative gift, and it's an actual fire. Like it's a real one. And
fire meaning LA fire here?
No, like
a
it's a spark. Somebody's got some inspiration. They have some ability. They feel the call. Then they have the ability to suffer for it. And I've seen kids have that, and they're too influenced by some crappy art in their own lives that they start imitating. They're sort of going in this in that direction, and it's not a healthy direction. And I've seen parents be really supportive to a fault and end up sending them down a really unfortunate creative road where they had that equipment that's so rare, where they have the endurance, they have the perseverance, the diligence, the commitment to really, really working the long, hard hours to do the stuff. It's just that they're doing dumb stuff.
Yeah.
And the parents are like, Johnny's so talented.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh man, that's unfortunate.
And that's where sometimes the separation of patronage would be nice. Where
it's like somebody else needs to be saying,
stupid art doesn't work.
Like, listen, you've got the endurance, you've got this ability.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like, this is not an exact analogy, but you think about somebody who's incredibly athletic, like really, really crazily athletic. So Hall of Fame NFL level wide receiver.
Yeah.
They've had that athleticism from childhood. And they got really into hacky sack.
Right.
And so mom and dad just bought them hacky sacks all the time. Just like, I'm supportive. My job is to be supportive. Somebody should have said, you know what would be amazing is if we actually worked with.
We just took the ball and squished it out in football shape.
If we got you into this team situation, we got some other coaches working with you who, were not your parents.
Yeah.
That would be really helpful, and get you on this other track. I've also seen parents be really just like blindly supportive in ways where their kid, when they were young, needed more steering wheel. They needed more help getting on the right interstate. And instead of going into weird dead end directions. But I've also seen kids who are deeply talented and have that spark and that fire and that desire, and their parents put it out completely.
Yeah, because they didn't.
That's
have
not
any
practical.
Idea. Yeah, I had no idea how.
That's not practical, Johnny.
Yeah.
You need to be focusing on the real. So when you have a kid who's like, oh, I've got a day off, so I'm going to spend 6 hours drawing. Like, okay, like that's pretty wild. You know, like that's interesting. Like that's a kind of commitment and a diligence and a drive. Like, how do you channel this? How do you help refine it? How do you help push them, as opposed to saying, Johnny, get off your butt, do something productive.
Right.
Like, Johnny, do this, Johnny, do that. Like, the kid's grinding.
Yeah, they're working.
Yeah.
Drawing for 6 hours.
And you go in there and look at them, and they're, you know, it's all pictures of dragons with, you know, fair maidens in their mouth with lots of cleavage. You're like, you know, Johnny, we need to like, we need to be probably controlling your creative diet more. And we need to be like, I need to find you something that truly inspires you. Like, we need to be feeding him better. We need to be finding other things. We need to be talking about why not this, why this other thing is better. We need to help calibrate this guy. You need to introduce him to other artists that you actually trust and that he respects. You know, you need to try to like discipline that. You don't just say, stop it. Drawing is stupid. Mm-hmm. You know, you don't just do that. It can be dangerous. You get out like, hey, it's been 6 hours. Come down and talk to the family. Be social. Be balanced. Yeah, artists need that too. They need that. They need that a lot. So there's plenty of things like that. I've done that to my daughter a ton. You know, she could be just down the wormhole artistically. Yeah. And it's like, hey, you know, we're not doing that right now. Yeah. Like, the ability to set that down and come be a sister, come be social is really important. It's really important. But it's also important that you have the ability to just go.
It's almost like artists need parents.
Yeah, right? They really, like every other kid, right? So it is. I've seen parents really mess it up both directions. And of course, on that rare occasion, you see parents who they know when to push the kid to go harder. They know when to pull them back. They know when to hand them this novel at the right time. They know when to show them this movie that kind of blows their hair back. They know how to do this and feed them a creative diet that's actually going to really kind of fortify them and nourish them. And that's fantastic. But on the flip side, I think to tie this off in a bow, do not expect that raw financial incentive, while financial incentive is important, especially in the popular art, do not expect it to produce great things. Raw financial incentive will not produce artistic greatness by itself. At the same time, if you cap it and you disincentivize greatness by removing any financial incentive, if you're mediocre, you make the same amount as if you're great, you can expect inevitable outcomes very, very quickly. Your cheese cubes are going to get worse and worse and worse, as we have seen.
Oh,
I personally have turned on many an unwatchable movie on a streamer and have then turned it off. I don't know how many movies I've finished on streamers recently. So, and I'm on a treadmill looking for something.
It's been another
sassafras.
Some people prefer to be cremated instead of buried, but Granddad wanted to be buried.
You are dying. So am I. Every second I create more of my past, more decisions, more breathing, more love and more loathing. All of it slides by into the gone as I grab at more moments, at memories just made and already fading. We are all authors, creators of our pasts, authors of the books that will be our lives. When we race across the wet concrete of time without purpose, without laughter and love and sacrifice, then we fail in our mortal moments. See the past, see your life as the fruit of providence and thousands of personal narratives. What led to you? Lighthearted tales of neighborhood love, great tales of migrations, epic tales of global wars and comedies, dark stories about brothers and murder, tales of rape and grief and persecution. You did not choose where to set your feet in time. You choose where to set them next. Pause, breathe, eyes front. See the future. Do not stare into the fog of distant years. See the crystal choices as they race towards you in this sharp foreground we call now. The future flies at you in a never-ending storm of possibilities. God says create. God says live. Choose. Shape the past. Etch your lives in stone, and what you make will be forever. You are dying. So am I. We march from page to page, and it is our living that takes us toward the end. Children will follow, reading our stories, built on our stories, set in a place and in a time that we helped choose for them. They will be the ones to shut the book behind us. They will dig holes and arrange flowers. They will fill out forms. Cause of death? Life. May it be the truth.
What's the point of the whole Bible?
Kill the